Thank you all for joining us here at I-80 Sports, where today we are giving you our thoughts from the opening week in the NHL, as well as other news and notes around the NHL. Thank you again for joining us here at I-80 Sports. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe on this video to stay up to date with all content on I-80 Sports. You can also stay up to date by checking out our website, i80sports.com, and you can keep up with us on Twitter at I80_SportsNHL. And we also have a Facebook group, the I-80 Sports Discussion Group, if you would like to come check us out there as well. I'm Brian. He's Tom. Tom, how are you doing today?
Doing well. Before we start here, I just want to wish a happy birthday to number 11, the captain, Mark Messier, 60 years old today.
Amazing. It's amazing to me that he's 60 at this point. It felt like not too long ago he was, still lacing it up for the New York Rangers. It's amazing. It's amazing how time flies. But happy birthday to him. Happy Martin Luther King Day as well to those who had the day off to celebrate that as well. But today, what we're going to be talking about we're going to be talking about some news and notes around the NHL. And we're also going to give you our thoughts on some of our favorite teams of the opening week of the NHL, because as we all know, the first night of games in the NHL was last Wednesday night. And we've just been watching ever since. I mean, I've been as happy as a clam watching games every single day. I know Tom can absolutely say he's been happy watching as well. But let's dive into some news, because there is one team that has not started their season yet, and that is the Dallas Stars. The Dallas Stars, however, though, will be starting their season this Friday, January 22nd. And the only reason why they are starting late is because of a COVID outbreak with them. There were 27 COVID cases, or at least presumed COVID cases, before the season start, 17 of which were with the Dallas Stars. It also affected the Florida Panthers schedule as well, as they couldn't get underway until this past Sunday. But Tom, what are your thoughts to, the potential of the rest of the season and how the rest of the season goes? Do you think we're going to have some smooth sailing, or do you think we're going to have some bumps along the way?
The unfortunate part about it is I do think we're going to have some bumps along the way. We saw this in the MLS this year, Major League Soccer. We saw it in the MLB. We saw it a little bit in the NFL. It's an unfortunate fact of what's going on right now that it is going to happen. I really think that these next 6 weeks are going to be a little crucial. We may see this again in the next 6 weeks. But I feel that maybe once we get into the springtime, say April or May, hopefully, fingers crossed, like what everyone's projecting is that this is going to tail off, and I'm hoping that that's going to be the case too. I just have a feeling, though, that this isn't the last we're going to hear this. I got a funny feeling that maybe, another team or teams are going to have some games pushed back just because of the unfortunate reality of the world we're living in right now.
It is unfortunate, and certainly we hope that anybody that does get affected by this recovers quickly, and nobody else has to end up recovering because of this, or nobody else contracts. So certainly this is going to be an ongoing story that might come up week to week, where we talk about maybe some players that are in COVID protocol at the current moment. It's going to be a new wrinkle to this season, and certainly this season is going to be different no matter what. But we roll with the punches as we go. Moving right along, talk about moving with the punches and rolling with the punches. Pierre-Luc Dubois is officially on the trading block, and it doesn't seem like he wanted anybody to know about that. And it doesn't seem like management wanted that to leak as well. The Columbus Blue Jackets head coach, John Tortorella, came out in public and said Pierre-Luc Dubois has requested a trade. And since then, there have been rumors connecting him to Montreal. Pierre LeBrun this past week was talking about some details that Columbus and Montreal were talking about on what would need to be included in that deal and who's off the block completely. And this is a developing story as time goes on. We were kind of talking about this for the past couple of weeks of Pierre-Luc Dubois signed an extension, but does he really want to stay in Columbus? And it doesn't seem like it's so. And it's a really unfortunate story, Tom. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, I think he signed that contract just so he could play. I don't think he wanted to hold out. I don't think he wanted to lose a whole year, which potentially could have happened with not signing. But it just so happens, and I don't know. I don't know if it has to do with maybe the organization. I don't know if it has to do with the coaching, or maybe just the city. But it just seems like lately a lot of guys don't want to be playing in Columbus. Now Dubois, French Canadian, decent center. Does he know going to Montreal what he's getting himself into? A lot of guys, a lot of top caliber, and I don't know if he's a top caliber player as of yet. He's a good player. I don't know if he's top caliber yet. But a lot of top caliber players in the past, especially of French Canadian heritage, have not wanted to go to Montreal. There was a rumor a few years back where Vinny Lecavalier, Tampa, all but had him traded there, and he said, "I'm not going there. Are you out of your mind?" He goes, "I'll get crucified daily up there." So, Dubois, he's treading in some hot water here. If he goes to Montreal, he better know what he's getting himself into. I've heard the Rangers are in on him too. Where it's going, I'm sure they've talked. I don't know if anything's come of it. The season is still way too early to even determine what would happen there. But I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I really don't think he's going to finish the season in Columbus. Will he go to Montreal? Your guess is as good as mine. But if he goes up there, like I said before, he's going to be dealing with something that he's never dealt with before. I can guarantee that.
Yeah, it's good. This is going to be a developing story that we are going to be following for potentially in the next coming weeks until Pierre-Luc Dubois is dealt, because it seems like a foregone conclusion that his days in Columbus are numbered at this point. Now, he put up a goal today for Columbus, and there were some talks that maybe Tortorella sat him for a little while just to, be John Tortorella and just say, okay, you go sit in the corner and think about what you've done, which has been nothing. And it's just going to be interesting. I mean, either way, I think Pierre-Luc Dubois has solidified himself as a top six forward. He can play left wing. He can play center. He can play both very comfortably. And I think it's going to be interesting to see where he goes and what that deal could look like if he goes to Montreal or not. Moving right along, we had some interesting waiver claims that happened over the course of this week. One even that happened today that was very interesting, which will segue into something that we'll talk about in a second. So those interesting waiver claims, and you'll see a trend here. Anton Forsberg was claimed by Winnipeg from Edmonton, and that's going to be a team that we're going to be talking about in just a second, and just keep Edmonton in mind for a second there. Eric Comrie was claimed by New Jersey from Winnipeg. So both of these players are goalies, by the way, who we're talking about. Next, defenseman Lucas Spiza was claimed by Nashville from Winnipeg. And lastly, goaltender Aaron Dell was claimed today by New Jersey from Toronto. So New Jersey claiming two goaltenders, both Eric Comrie and Aaron Dell. I'll dive into that a little bit more later on in this video. But the big thing that I can take away from this is Edmonton is hurting for goaltending help right now, and they let Anton Forsberg walk to Winnipeg. They lose Mike Smith to long-term IR, and now you're just stuck with Koskinen in net, and you have amateur goaltending behind him. Do you see any way up for Edmonton at this point, Tom? This looks pretty bad right now, right?
I mean, this would have to be one of those Jordan Binnington-like stories where you have an unknown coming up and just really dazzling up there. And as we know, Edmonton is not exactly the most defensive team in the league. They rely heavy on up top with McDavid and Draisaitl and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. It right now, it doesn't look good. It really doesn't look good for them in a year where a lot of us thought they were finally going to be turning the corner. And this is a little bit of a roadblock. A loss. We're only about 2 games into the season, so I can't go make any predictions yet. You never know. Somebody they bring up could be the answer. Very well could be. We don't know. But I'll tell you what, they did not look good Saturday night in that game against Montreal. Montreal smacked them. Montreal was all over them like flies on you-know-what. So it doesn't look good so far.
Yeah, it's a rough situation in Edmonton right now, and everything is developing as time goes on. And just one thing to keep in mind for all of our listeners out there, it is the first week of the NHL. It's the first couple games. So, you can't write off a team right after game 2 or right after one injury. There's still another 54 games left on the docket. And, if you give up now, you're only handicapping yourself. So, I certainly think Edmonton can figure it out. Is it going to be rough for the early going? Certainly. But, this is a team that can figure out there's going to be more waiver claims. You're going to see probably more waiver claims this year than in previous years. So there is the opportunity for Edmonton to possibly go make a move. Maybe they could even trade from their depth as well. Maybe, maybe not. But it's still something that can happen for Edmonton. This is not the end. And once again, a developing story that we're going to be following. But before I dive into my thoughts on New Jersey, we wanted to give our opening week thoughts on some of our favorite teams, which in Tom's case, for those who might not know, he is a diehard New York Rangers fan. For myself, I'm a diehard New Jersey Devils fan. Very proud as well. So to start off with, Tom, I'm going to let you roll for a little bit, and then I'll roll for a little bit on my favorite team. So, Tom, talk to us about the Rangers and what you thought.
Well, the Rangers, like just about, not just about every other team, but a few other teams, is kind of like a Jekyll and Hyde thing. They went out and were horrible Thursday night. And when I mean horrible, I mean horrible. You couldn't put that loss on anybody. The whole team was bad. The Islanders took all the valuable real estate on the ice. They clogged the middle up. The Rangers got no chances anywhere. They couldn't get anything going on open ice, and they paid for it. Jack Johnson was terrible. Basically, nobody on the team really played a good game. Saturday night, different story. 5-0. They really controlled the game. We're finding those open areas on the ice. Panarin, Buchnevich were great. Kakko finally potted one. It was nice to see. My little qualm with Kakko is that I really do feel like Quinn needs to use him a little bit more. Needs to get him on the power play. He needs to be back in the top six. If you're going to have him in that third line role, then you really should bring back that Hedl, Kakko, and Lemieux line. That line was great last year, and I don't know why Quinn broke them up. I'm still trying to figure this out. I don't know why. We had some other good starts. Adam Fox has looked great on the back end. I also am a little bit of a head scratcher why he broke Fox and Lindgren up. I think that pair is going to be back together sooner rather than later. Our other guy, our newest prized possession, our newest shiny toy, Alexis Lafreniere, looked great. I mean, was it a Mario Lemieux and Austin Matthews start of the career? Absolutely not. But he looked like he belonged. He was making plays out there. And, it's still a bit of a learning curve. I mean, it's always a learning curve in the NHL, which is about anybody. But I really do feel like once Lafreniere gets this down, which is going to be fairly soon, Lafreniere is going to be a force to be reckoned with. Now we go into the goalie situation. Georgiev is going to start tomorrow against the Devils. He started against the Islanders Saturday night. That shouldn't mean anything bad about Igor Shesterkin. Majority of those goals, I mean, one of those goals he maybe should have had on Thursday night against the Islanders, but there were so many other ones where the Rangers just had bad penalties. Jack Johnson had a bad clear on the one goal. Shesterkin, you can't put that on him. They're going with Georgiev because he got the shutter against the Islanders, and he's an Islander killer. So he's going to start tomorrow against the Devils. But you're going to see Shesterkin back in there sooner rather than later. And I guess I'll finish here with what's going on with Tony DeAngelo. Me personally, I've never been a huge Tony DeAngelo fan. I don't want to say too many bad things about him on here because he may watch this and trash me on Twitter, and we don't want that. Of course not. Sorry, Tony, I'm just messing with you. But I feel like he's kind of played himself into this bad situation right now. It's he had an unsportsmanlike the other night. He's slamming doors, acting like a child, and unfortunately, the reputation DeAngelo carries with him is that at other stops he's been at, he's been a problem. He's been a problem in the locker room in juniors. He was a problem in the locker room in Phoenix, and I'm wondering now if he's becoming a problem in the locker room in New York. And the problem with him is a problem in the locker room in New York is he may have had that great season last year. A great offensive defenseman season, but is Tony DeAngelo a guy in a playoff game or in a close game where you need the points that you're going to have out there to defend the lead? I don't think so. Is he anybody beyond a guy you're going to put on your first power play unit and maybe you're going to get a little more offense out of? Probably, but the thing is now you have Adam Fox who can play both ways. Fox can be that number one defenseman on the power play. You have that kid over in Sweden, Nils Lundqvist, who's really tearing it up in Sweden. And I mean, once his season's over there, if things are better with this COVID, I could see them bringing him over here and giving him a look, whether it be in the AHL or up top. And unfortunately for Tony's case, if he doesn't tone it down or really find what he needs to find, he may be finding himself playing somewhere else fairly soon. But other than that, it's been a Jekyll and Hyde team. You can't really paint a picture of what's going on after 2 games. It's just, you can't do it.
Yeah, it's difficult. And, to piggyback on the Tony DeAngelo thought, to me, I think he was a player that very much benefited from the Lindy Ruff system. And now that he's not in that system anymore, I think he's, taking the bumps and bruises now and getting a little overexposed and showing that his defensive side of the game needs to improve and improve quickly. But developing story as will follow. Now, I'll talk right now about the New Jersey Devils. And overall, I liked what I saw this week. I honestly did. The team looks a lot more comfortable than they did last year. I think Lindy Ruff brings a relaxed style of coaching to this team. And obviously, he likes to have fun with this group. He likes to keep them relaxed. And he also likes showing aggression in the opposing zone. I have never in the past 4 years seen the defense play as deep as they have been in the past 2 games, which is great to see. Another thing that's great to see, Jack Hughes looks 200% better than he did last year, which is awesome. He's making plays with confidence and even carrying the veterans on the team on certain occasions. He has almost certainly silenced the doubters from last year so far with 3 assists and 2 games so far. So really good. Another big bright spot. I mentioned him last week and I got to amend this. I pronounced his name wrong last week. So I need to amend that, but holy moly, Igor Sharangovich. What more can you say about the past 2 games with him? He looks like a veteran with the puck. He looks so comfortable on the puck, and Boston was actively trying to neutralize his game in both games, actively afraid of what Sharangovich could do with the puck. And because of that, he drew multiple penalties. He scored the overtime winner on a beauty that night as well with seconds left in the second game. And I think it pretty much confirms that he's here to stay on this roster. He is out to prove something to this New Jersey Devils team and say, I'm giving you a reason why 2 years ago you drafted me in the 5th round, and I'm showing you why I should have been drafted higher. And he is certainly proving that in spades right now. Moving right along to another player that impressed me, Mackenzie Blackwood. Dare I say he's been the best goalie during week 1. He handled some very difficult situations from a very experienced Boston team and did it effortlessly. Mark my words, the NHL is going to open their eyes to Blackwood this year. He is going to be a name that's going to be on a lot of people's tongues for years to come. He looked very comfortable. He looked very good. Fun fact with that one, the Devils are the only team remaining left at the beginning of this season that is not allowed an even strength goal. That was actually a fact that I didn't actually know, and I actually think that's really interesting to hear. Pretty cool. That one comes to you from Bar Down, for those that are interested in that podcast. Some players that also stood out to me in the past 2 games that I can't really expand upon, but I really liked what I saw, were Damon Severson, PK Subban, Ryan Murray, rookie Ty Smith. Congratulations on your first goal, sir. Travis Zajac, Miles Wood, and Pavel Zacha. I do hope that Kyle Palmieri can pick it up a little bit more this week. To me, he looked a little flat at times. And like I said, it's the first couple games. This is a guy that you can, set him in a particular place and forget about him. He's going to manage to score 20 plus goals and be perfectly fine. But overall, I think he's going to get it going. There's a lot of time left. And one thing to keep in mind with players that you might not like at this current moment, this is a New Jersey Devils team that hasn't played as a team since March 2020 and has had to learn a brand new coaching scheme with a third of the practice time and no preseason games. So there's going to be some bumps and bruises. There's going to be some kinks, but I got to say, I like what I see. Now, I mentioned before that the Devils had claimed Eric Comrie and Aaron Dell off of waivers. That's going to be a developing story to see what happens with current backup goaltender Scott Wedgwood, because with Eric Comrie, he was once seen as Winnipeg's future before Hellebuck emerged, meaning Connor Hellebuck emerged. And Aaron Dell, he's a very serviceable backup goaltender who was, a backup and even starting for San Jose last year. So it's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening in the system. It's going to be interesting to see who ends up taking the reins as the backup goaltender over the next coming week or weeks. But currently in the Devils system, the current goaltenders currently in the New Jersey Devils system, ranked by my personal opinion, and you can take it with a grain of salt, Mackenzie Blackwood, Aaron Dell, Eric Comrie, Scott Wedgwood, Gilly Sen, and Evan Cormier. So, like I said, I like what I saw over the past week. but there's still a lot of season left to go. So now we're just going to dive into some general thoughts on things that we saw from this past week around the NHL that we wanted to mention here right now. First thing I really wanted to mention was how I really liked how Kirill Kaprizov looked for Minnesota so far. He plays a very offensively aggressive game. He has 2 points in 2 games thus far and remains a favorite for the Calder Trophy. And he looks really good. And that overtime winner looked really, really good in this first game. Tom, your thoughts on Kaprizov?
Yeah, he's been as advertised. I know you were picking him for the Calder Trophy. He really is carrying Minnesota right now. And I know a lot of crazy Ranger fans who don't really think things through are saying, why is he's better than Lafreniere? He's better than Lafreniere. First of all, it's 2 games. Second of all, he's getting more minutes than Lafreniere. But like I said, so far, very good. He may be, I don't know if he's going to be the sole future for Minnesota. But definitely a building block for their future, as they are a team that's trying to turn the corner. They are a team that's maybe trying to shed some of that old Minnesota Wild aura of only bringing in guys from Minnesota, because both teams, the North Stars and the Wild, did that, and really, what did it do for them? Close to nothing. So yeah, so far so good. Alas, we don't have a large sample size to be working with here, so we shall see.
Yeah.
We shall see what happens.
The theme of the night, not a big sample size to look at, to be quite honest. Another thing I wanted to mention, this is kind of on the negative side for those Islanders fans out there. Talk about freak accidents. Semyon Varlamov left during warmups after catching a puck in his neck. I've watched it. It looked painful. It looked really painful. He was slated to be the starting goaltender Saturday night, and he had to be scratched due to the, in my opinion, preventable injury. Why would you not wear a neck guard? Like, why, as a goaltender in the NHL, do you not wear a neck guard? Tom, I mean, do you agree with that statement on my part?
I do agree with your statement on my part, but you know what? That injury kind of made me a little happier because the Rangers beat the crap out of them 5-0. No, you know what? I don't know why he wouldn't wear a neck guard either. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. He looked really good Thursday night against the Rangers. I give him that. I don't know if it would have been a repeat performance on Saturday. I think the Rangers would have woke up. Would it have been a 5-0 game with him in net? Probably not, but it definitely would have not been. It definitely wouldn't have gone 4-0 again the Islanders way. But yeah, I don't understand why he did that. That doesn't make any sense. But something they say about goalies, they're in their own mind, they're in their own world. If you tell them to do one thing or another, you don't know what it's going to get. There was a time, and I'll put my history lesson for the night on this one. There was a time in the past where Bob Hartley yanked Patrick Waugh out of a game when Hartley was coaching in Colorado and Waugh was playing for them. And because he yanked Waugh didn't get credit for the win that the Avalanche won. So Patrick Waugh decided to take his liberties and take his goalie stick and basically just go into Bob Hartley's office and trash every single thing that was in there with his goalie stick. So you know how goalies are. They're a different brood. They're a very different breed, very different kind of people. So maybe that had something to do with it. I don't know.
Yeah, goalies are a different breed in general, and I felt bad for how Ilya Sorokin looked in net for the Islanders. For Islanders fans out there, the very few of you maybe, I don't take Sorokin's performance in his first game as an indication of what he is as a goaltender. He is a fantastic goaltender. So, first game in the NHL, it's going to go one way or the other. You're either going to look okay or it might not look that great. Time will tell. Tom, what did you want to bring up in terms of things that you liked or didn't like over the course of this week?
You know what? I know I talked highly about Toronto, and I got to admit that opening night game against Montreal was great. That game was great. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, okay, maybe they turned a corner a little bit. Maybe they're going to be the team that we all think they're going to be. And then, of course, they had a stinker against Ottawa Friday night. They came back Saturday and beat Ottawa. Joe Thornton turned back the clock a little bit, had a nice little goal there. But the problem is that the question marks with them are still arising. It's a defensive thing. They have all the offense in the world, and it's like Coach O'Rien said in the Third Mighty Ducks, I've seen your tapes. I know you can score goals. I just don't know if you can stop them. And the same can be really said for Edmonton, They lost to Vancouver in that first game, but you know what? That was maybe to be a little bit expected. As everyone on here knows, if you've been watching us since we started, I'm a big proponent of the Vancouver Canucks. I talk very highly of them. I think out of maybe any team up in Canada, they may be the team that's going to be talked about in the future with what they're doing. So that was understandable. That game against Vancouver could have gone either way, but man, I know I mentioned before, but that game against Montreal Saturday night, they just got smacked. They got smacked. They have two of the best players in the league, not even two of the best players in the world right now, you could say, on their team, maybe top 5 in the world, and they got smacked 5-1 by Montreal, who I didn't really expect to do much of anything. Tampa Bay, Stanley Cup champions, picked right up where they left off. Good start for them. But like I said, I leave everything with this underlying thing. It's a 2-game sample size. Anybody can do good for 2 games in a row. Let's see what happens when we're 10 games in, when we're 15 games in, when we're 25 games in. Then we'll really know who's who and who's going where.
This is very, very true. And, the underlying theme of the night. And speaking of that underlying theme, we have a new segment that we would like to introduce to the end of these shows, and that is the listener question of the week. So this is going to be a segment that is going to happen every week going forward. So if you want to be part of the listener question of the week, all you need to do is when I post to either Facebook or Twitter, or even if you want to include a question on YouTube, you can certainly comment down below with your question. Maybe even if you're lucky, your question could be highlighted in an upcoming video. So with that being said, we have our first question that we would like to answer tonight. Kevin from Facebook asks, what are the odds that Mackenzie Blackwood wins the Vezina Trophy? I know it's early, but he's playing out of his mind so far. Now, the underlying theme again, it is early. It is 2 games. It is a small sample size. But there's still enough here that we can kind of analyze this and kind of look a little bit deeper. So I'll start, and certainly I will offer Tom the chance to rebuttal afterwards, but I do want to share some stats and some comparisons right now. The one goalie that I can't really compare Blackwood to right now is Igor Shesterkin, just because he does have a significantly smaller sample size than the person that I wanted to compare, who has a lot more of a direct comparison.
And his team stunk off the joint in the first game.
Exactly. So it wouldn't be fair for me to do that as well. So I didn't want to necessarily make it unfair and just be like, oh yeah, Shesterkin's garbage. No, he's not garbage. He's a fantastic goaltender. So let's analyze this. So all of these stats are coming from Hockey Reference. So if you ever want to, go and look, check out hockeyreference.com. They do a great job with advanced analytics as well. So Mackenzie Blackwood, number 1, just a little background on him. He was the 42nd pick in the 2015 draft by New Jersey. So this year so far, he's got 1 win, 1 shootout loss in 2 games, 3 goals against on 65 shots, which is good for a .954 save percentage and a .138 goals against average. Yeah, small sample size, but really good so far. Fantastic, actually. But let's look at last year. 47 games played, 43 starts, 22 wins, 14 losses, 8 overtime and shootout losses. Okay, not horrible, not elite. But let's look deeper. 124 goals on 1,452 shots. That's insane. The fact that he had to face that many shots in that short a time, insane. So that statistic alone is good for a .915 save percentage and a .277 goals against average. He finished 6th in the Calder votes last year. He was eligible for the Calder last year. So the last 12 games of 2020 is what I really want to look at from that sample size, from February into March. He was 8-2-2 with a .937 save percentage. That was the best in the league at that point, and playing for a not so good New Jersey Devils team. Keep in mind. So who can we compare him to? Who's the direct comparison for Mackenzie Blackwood? Look no further than a goaltender who manages to get far more recognition than Blackwood does at the current moment, and is also a friendly rival. Flyers goaltender Carter Hart. There's actually a lot of parallels here in terms of stats. So Carter Hart, first of all, he was the 48th pick in the 2016 draft by Philadelphia. So they're 1 year apart, picked relatively around the same point in the draft. This year, he's got 2 wins in 2 games, 5 goals on 67 shots, which is good for a .925 save percentage and a .251 goals against average. Again, small sample size. But again, let's look at last year. What did he do last year? 43 games played, 40 starts. All right, I'm already seeing some similarities. 24 wins, 13 losses, 3 overtime and shootout losses. 95 goals on 1,100 shots even, which is good for a .914 save percentage and a .242 goals against average. He faced less shots than Blackwood did, in relatively the same amount of games. So, fun fact, Mackenzie Blackwood's 72 games, NHL games played, is the third most by any active goaltender drafted since 2013. In second place is Carter Hart with 76 games played. In first, and I was surprised by this, Saros for Nashville. He was the number 99 overall pick in 2013. He's played 121 games. There's absolutely parallels between each player. But the difference is there's this narrative that Blackwood is not as good as Hart, and that Hart is an elite goaltender where Blackwood is not. And I disagree completely. I think they're in the same league like 100%. His stats just proved the exact opposite of that statement that Blackwood's not an elite goaltender. If we consider Hart an elite goaltender by his stats alone, then Blackwood's absolutely in that conversation. Plus, he's doing it on a below average New Jersey Devils team, whereas Philadelphia, in the eyes of many, is a Stanley Cup favorite this year. Especially, heck, Spit and Chicklets already said they're a Stanley Cup favorite in their eyes. So it may be too early to say right now. But he's a goaltender who I think is in the conversation, if not this year, in years to come. He's only 24 years old, and he's only getting better with time. Tom, what do you think? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree?
Well, I want to preface it with this. I actually pulled up his stats on Hockey Reference, and I didn't know he's from Thunder Bay, Ontario. And of course, there's a picture of him with a scar under his eye. And the first thing I think of is that movie Youngblood, where Patrick Swayze's telling Rob Lowe, "You don't want stitches in Thunder Bay." And I saw the scar there, so I had to hold my laughter, and I started cracking up. But I do agree with you on that. He is carrying I guess I don't want to say a below average team with the Devils. The Devils do still have a lot of potential. Well, whereas the Flyers are a cup contender. So can he be a favorite for the Vezina based on stats and based on what we're working with now? Very much so, yes. But we're working with small sample sizes here as we have our recurring theme of the night here. And it really, really depends on where the Devils go this season. Now, if the Devils are right now 1-0-1, they had an impressive win against Boston the other night in OT. They took Boston to OT in game one of the season on Thursday night. And Boston, who's been one of the best teams over the past few years. Obviously, Boston is not the same Boston. They're a little weaker this year. But, from what it's worth, yeah, I think he can be. But like he had said, like Kevin had said, it's still very, very early. It's still 2 games in. Now, if we're 10 games in, or 15 games in, 25, 50, so on and so forth, and the Devils are fighting for a playoff spot, the Devils are right in there, 3rd or 4th in the division, or they're right on the bubble, and they make the playoffs on the last day of the season, and they get in there, hell yeah, he can be a Vezina favorite, and I think he would win a Vezina, even if the Flyers finish in first place or a Stanley Cup contender, just because of the personnel the Flyers have that are not in that, But I think definitely, yeah, he can be. He can be. I had said during our awards prediction show that this Vezina trophy is a very open-ended trophy this year. This is anybody's trophy to take. I said even maybe Igor Shesterkin could take it. Obviously, right now he's going to sit again tomorrow. That's not going to happen all year. Very open trophy this year. It's open season for that trophy this year. So, if the Devils do have themselves a good year, if the Devils are a bubble playoff team, if the Devils finish above 500, you could seriously consider them for this. Definitely.
100%. And, above all else, when we talk about the potential of Shesterkin, Blackwood, and Hart, ultimately, it's just going to mean really, really good hockey in the East and really, really good hockey for us to watch for years to come, which is fantastic because we as hockey fans, we thrive on more hockey. We want to watch more hockey. And watching good teams play good hockey, what more do you want? But I want to thank Kevin on Facebook for the question. And if you want your question featured in an upcoming video, all you got to do is either comment down below on this video. You can also follow us on Twitter as well, where whenever I comment for questions, you can certainly chime in with a question of your own. Doesn't have to be Devils related, doesn't have to be Rangers related. It can be NHL general related, player related, doesn't matter what it is. We will answer it and we will give you our 2 cents because, well, that's what we do. That's what we're good at. So, do you agree with what we had to say about the Devils Rangers and just some general hockey news today? Let us know. Like, comment, and subscribe to I-80 Sports. We're not just hockey as well. We also have football, MLS coverage as well on I-80 Sports. Also, make sure you check out our website, i80sports.com. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at I80_sports NHL for all of that content. And make sure you also follow us on Facebook at the I-80 Sports Discussion Group. I'm Brian. He's been Tom. This has been I-80 NHL.